I'm Isabella here with Connor and Kavya to talk about the Jodo Rinpoche enshrined in the Joking Temple in the Shiva's Lord of Dance in Attaraja.
It's great to be here with you guys to discuss art.
The Jodo Rinpoche is located in the Jokhang Temple in Lhasa, Tibet.
In the Tibetan language, Jo means sculpture and Rinpoche means the precious one.
The Jodo Rinpoche is also known as the Jodo Shakyamuni, and Shakyamuni was a Chinese name given to the historical Buddha Siddhartha Gautama.
This statue is believed to have been modeled after the 12-year-old Siddhartha Gautama.
Buddhists believe the Jodo Rinpoche was created by the celestial architect Vishwakarma.
And he's celestial because Buddhists believe Vishwakarma sculpted Jodo Rinpoche with the god Indra's guidance.
Yeah, and it's additionally believed that Vishwakarma created the Jodo Rinpoche during the Buddha Shakyamuni's lifetime.
Buddhists believe the Jodo Rinpoche has direct lineage to Buddha Shakyamuni because they believe it was created during his lifetime.
Buddhists believe that the Jodo Rinpoche is the most accurate image of what the Buddha actually looked like.
Yeah, and because he is believed to have been made during the Buddha's lifetime, Buddhists believe that the Jodo Rinpoche possesses the Buddha's blessings and energy.
Buddhists believe that if they have enough faith and devotion, then the statue will transform from being just an ordinary statue to being the real Buddha himself.
And therefore, this statue holds religious importance to the Buddhists because they believe that if the real Buddha and that his energy is present when they worship him.
And this energy can help the worshipper in their path to enlightenment.
The ultimate goal of Buddhism is to reach nirvana,
release from samsara, or the endless cycle of birth and death.
Buddhists aspire to get out of the cycle through enlightenment.
And Buddhists believe the Jodo Rinpoche statue contains the Buddha's energy to help them achieve enlightenment.
Yeah, so Buddhists make pilgrimages to the Joking Temple in order to offer devotion and prayer to the Jodo Rinpoche.
Another way the Jodo Rinpoche connects to the Buddhist religious belief is by the Dhyana Mudra gesture of his left hand and the Bhumisparsha Mudra gesture of his right hand.
Right, and these hand gestures connect to the Buddhist belief of wanting to achieve enlightenment.
The Bhumisparsha Mudra gesture of his right hand symbolizes the moment when Buddha called the earth to witness for him.
The story goes that when the Buddha was meditating under the Bodhi tree, the devil Mora tempted the Buddha to move away from the Bodhi tree.
But he refused to give in to the temptation.
And instead he touched the ground and called on the earth to witness his greatness.
Exactly, and this moment is represented by the Jodo Rinpoche's right hand gesture, the Bhumisparsha Mudra gesture.
And this all happened in the Buddha's pursuit of enlightenment.
Yeah, so this story is part of the Buddhist belief in the Buddha's journey towards enlightenment.
And in addition to the Bhumisparsha gesture of his right hand, we have the Dhyana Mudra gesture of his left hand, which represents meditation.
Which is significant to Buddhist religious beliefs because Buddhists believe that the Buddha achieved enlightenment through meditation.
So together these hand gestures symbolize when the Buddha became enlightened and discovered the Four Noble Truths and established the Eightfold Path.
The Jodo Rinpoche is highly venerated, which shows its great religious significance to Buddhists.
Right, Kavya, and Buddhists venerate the statue by dressing it and giving it food.
Buddhists venerate the Jodo Rinpoche because they believe Buddha is in it, so they treat the statue as the real Buddha.
This is the most sacred religious artifact in Tibet because Buddhists believe it was blessed by the Buddha himself.
Buddhists make pilgrimages to come see the Jodo Rinpoche because they believe his energy healed sickness.
The Jodo Rinpoche has a thin robe draped over his left shoulder.
And the fact that the robe is draped over only one shoulder shows an Indian cross-cultural influence because Buddhists sculpted in India were sculpted with the robe covering one shoulder.
Speaking of the Jodo Rinpoche's cross-cultural influences, the Jodo Rinpoche was originally made in India and it belonged to the king of Magadha.
Magadha was an ancient kingdom within India.
The king of Magadha then gave the Jodo Rinpoche to the king of the Tang Empire in China as part of the trade.
Then from China the Jodo Rinpoche was brought to Tibet as part of the Chinese princess Wencheng Ganzu's wedding dowry when she married the Tibetan Emperor Songtsen Gampo.
And this cross-cultural connection from China to Tibet is important because the spread of Buddhism into Tibet coincided with the Jodo Rinpoche being brought from China to Tibet.
Originally it was sculpted with Indian influence.
Exactly, and then from India the sculpture was brought to China.
And then it was brought to Tibet.
And in Tibet the Jodo Rinpoche was renovated over the course of history.
The crown and robes seen today on the Jodo were added to the statue later on after it had been brought to Tibet.
So these later additions in Tibet are examples of Tibetan touches on the statue.
But the Tibetan addition of the robe shows Indian influence.
Because it is in the Indian style, being that the robe drapes over only one shoulder.
The gold paint on the Jodo Rinpoche shows Tibetan cultural influence.
And this is because painting the Buddha in gold was an influence attributed to Tibet. Tibetans loved gold and painted their Buddhas in gold.
Another example of Tibetan influence on the Jodo Rinpoche is his blue hair.
Right, and portraying the Buddha with blue hair was kind of a Tibetan thing.
Living turquoise was blue and became an important color for Tibet because Tibetans believe living turquoise made its wearer live longer.
An example of iconography is the long stretched ears of the Joa Rinpoche.
Yeah, the long ears symbolize that the Buddha Shakyamuni was once a prince.
And his ears are long because as a prince he would have worn heavy jewelry and earrings on his ears, which would have made him sag.
Long ears symbolize the Buddha Shakyamuni dismissing his royal life in order to seek enlightenment.
Another example of iconography is the dot known as the urna on the Jowo Rinpoche's forehead between his eyebrows.
And it symbolizes the third eye, which allows the Buddha to see into the divine world and see past the world of suffering.
The urna shows the Buddha's wisdom in seeing what others can't see.
The gold skin on the Jowo Rinpoche represents the legend where he was born with skin that glowed like the sun, which indicates his special birth.
And whenever someone knows something about the cosmos, he or she comes to Earth in a special way.
So the Buddhists believe that the Buddha was special because he understood the cosmos and how to end suffering.
Right, and so special figures always have had some kind of special birth. And an art piece similar to the Jowo Rinpoche is the Nataraja.
Yeah, and it's similar to the Jowo Rinpoche in many ways.
Both pieces share a similar connected religious belief.
Yeah, Hindus believe that the Shiva's Lord of Dance statue contains the spirit of the Hindu god Shiva.
And Hindus believe that they have to have faith to make the spirit of the deity be in the statue, but without faith, the statue is just an ordinary artifact.
But with faith, the statue transforms into the presence of the god, which is a similar belief to the Buddhist belief about the Jowo Rinpoche.
Yeah, Buddhists believe the Jowo contains the Buddhist energy.
And the Jowo contains the Buddha's energy only when a Buddhist has faith.
Additionally, both art pieces share similar religious practice centered around them.
Yeah, Hindus dress up the Nataraja statue in different cloths and jewelry, similarly to how the Jowo Rinpoche was dressed by Buddhists.
And the reason the Hindus dress up the Nataraja statue is because Hindus want to depict the gods in a glorious human form.
Right, and they also left him food.
The Shiva statue is intended to be paraded around, which is evident because of its moderate size, so it was ideal for lifting and parading around. Another religious belief associated with the Shiva statue is the Hindu belief of the cycle of creation and destruction.
Shiva is known as the destroyer god, making him important to Hindus because they believe there must be destruction for there to be creation.
So Shiva is a crucial aspect of the creation-destruction cycle, or samsara.
And this Hindu belief in samsara is very similar to the Buddhist belief in samsara.
Hindus aspire to achieve moksha, and moksha is also very similar to the Buddhist nirvana.
Yeah, both moksha and nirvana are released from the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth and creation and destruction.
The Nataraja statue additionally makes evident the Hindu religious belief in deities.
Yeah, Hindus believe in many different gods and deities, but each Hindu usually had an individual preference for one specific deity that he or she preferred to worship.
The Shiva statue represents the Hindu god Shiva.
Hindus believe in three main gods, Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu. The patron for the Shiva and the Jowo is unknown.
Right.
The Nataraja statue resulted as a collection of different cultural influences.
The Shiva statue was made during the Chola dynasty, which is when trade, exploration, and artistic development really excelled.
And this expansion is important because it brought together different ideas, materials, and techniques from different cultures.
One cultural influence on the Shiva statue was the copper from Sri Lanka, which the Chola Empire gained access to when it expanded.
And with the access to copper, Chola artists were able to start using copper to make bronze works.
And so the fact that the Shiva statue is cast bronze shows evidence of the cultural contribution of copper from Sri Lanka.
And the Shiva statue was actually made in southern India.
In the area now known as Tamil Nadu.
The Indian cultural influence on the Shiva statue shines through the statue in that the statue follows a standard set of Shilpa Shastras.
The Shilpa Shastras were an Indian guide consisting of different standards and rules of Hindu and Indian ideas of beauty and perfection.
Right, and Hindus and Indians believe that beauty existed in nature.
And this belief of beauty and power in nature was standardized into a set of measurements and shapes meant to be followed in art.
These standardized rules, known as the Shilpa Shastras, were what the Nataraja followed.
And because of this, there's Indian influence evident on the Shiva statue.
On the Nataraja statue, Shiva is depicted as having almond-shaped eyes.
Or eyes that look like lotus petals.
And the almond shape or lotus petal shape of his eyes indicate a reference to nature and therefore to beauty.
The Shilpa Shastras instructed that the eyes would be almond-shaped, and arms should be shaped like bamboo.
So Shiva's arms are bamboo-shaped, and thus his arms are beautiful because they reflect nature.
Additionally, Shiva's face is round like the moon, another reference to nature and beauty.
So the many cross-cultural influences on the Shiva as Lord of Dance statue include the Chola dynasty, India, and Sri Lanka, as well as the Hindu religious influence.
Let's talk about the iconography and use of symbols present on the Shiva as Lord of Dance statue.
The dot on Shiva's forehead between his eyebrows is the Urna.
So like the Joa Rinpoche, Shiva is also portrayed with the Urna.
And Shiva's Urna symbolizes his third eye and his ability to see in the future what we can't see.
Shiva is depicted holding the Damaru in his upper right hand.
And the Damaru is the drum that beats in correspondence with time's passing and with creation's occurrence.
Right, so the Damaru encapsulates the idea that Shiva is involved with the cycle of time.
And as we know, Shiva is the destroyer god, so he is part of the creation-destruction cycle.
And the creation-destruction cycle is what makes up time.
Exactly, and so the beat of time really is just things being created and destroyed and the repetition of this, which is symbolized by Shiva's drum.
Another symbol on the Nataraja statue is the ring of fire around Shiva.
And this ring symbolizes mass, time, and space, which suggests the endless cycle of creation and destruction.
Right, and the circle itself is endless, like samsara.
So Shiva is surrounded by this ring of fire, which also suggests the flames of creation.
It's also important to note the symbolism of Shiva's multiple limbs.
Yeah, and the multiple limbs depicted on Shiva is something that is different than the Joa Rinpoche statue. Multiple limbs symbolize that he can do many things at once. He can control things that we can't.
Shiva is seen doing the creation and destruction dance.
Another implement of iconography is the demon dwarf that Shiva is stepping on, who represents ignorance.
Shiva is seen holding the Agni in his top left hand, the flame of destruction.
So while Shiva's Damaru is beating sound into existence, his flame of destruction is destroying what his Damaru has created. So together, they symbolize a cycle of creation and destruction.
Both Joa Rinpoche and Nataraja have mudra gestures, which is another similarity between the two pieces, except the mudra gestures are different.
Shiva's bottom right hand is in the Abhya Mudra gesture, telling the viewer to follow his path.
Which is different meaning than the Joa Rinpoche's mudras.
And then Shiva's bottom left hand is pointed towards his left foot,
which symbolizes spiritual grace being achieved through meditation, which is similar to the Joa Rinpoche's Dhyana Mudra, which also symbolizes meditation.
The Joa Rinpoche and the Nataraja statues are ideal for comparing because their functions and religious practices centered around them are so similar.
The function of the Joa Rinpoche is to act as a house for the Buddha spirit.
And the function of the Shiva statue is very similar because it is meant to house Shiva's energy. The Joa and the Shiva statue are both dressed up with jewelry and robes, and oftentimes food is left before them.
And this is because Hindus and Buddhists each believe their respective idol's energy is present in their respective statue.
Well, it's been great talking to you guys about the Joa Rinpoche and the Nataraja statue.
Definitely, it's so fun talking about art with you guys.